Greetings, respected viewers. I'm George from Ireland. Here I am in front of the gateway of Richmond Palace in London. I shan't say too much just here because I filmed this place before. But anyway, this area was all known as Sheen to 1501 when Henry VII chose to rename it Richmond after one of his estates in Yorkshire. And there's Richmond Green behind me. So a bit of public land for playing cricket, having a picnic, walking your dog. But anyway, this area, Sheen, it was given to a Norman family, Bellay family, around about 1100 by the monarch. It wasn't taken back into royal hands until towards the end of the reign of Edward I, right at the end of the 13th century. Here you're seeing in a bit more detail the Gatehouse. Look above me, the coat of arms up there. You see a dragon and a dog. And unfortunately it's not coloured, but you see the fleur de lis of France, and then you'd see the three lions, originally of Normandy, latterly of England, like on the English football shirt, three lions on a shirt. That song by, oh my goodness, I'm forgetting his name now, David Baddiel and Frank Skinner from the 90s, about the 1996 European Football Championship. So anyway, several royal residences have stood on this site, and they've been demolished a number of times. Let me see. So then Edward I, Edward II spent some time here. They started building a palace because Henry I, as I say, had given it away. Well, right at the start of the 12th century, rented it out, and the royal family took it back. And now you can look at some of the diapered brickwork here. Anyway, what you're seeing here almost all dates from about 1501. Because there were several iterations of a palace on this site. Richard II, his wife Anna Bohemia, died here in 1394, and he was so distraught he ordered it to be levelled. Henry V had some building work done here. Of course, he's mostly busy fighting in France. Anyway, so you see these houses here called the wardrobe. It's not for storing clothes. A lot of the soft furniture of the palace was kept here. That's what's called the wardrobe. So you pass through the gateway, then there's the Gatehouse. You can't really see it, but above, perhaps make out the outline of the windows since bricked up. Anyway, so there's a courtyard in here, and Henry VII, when he founded this palace on this site, rebuilding on the site of previous palaces, he also set up a friary hard by for friars, as in monks. You know, monk is addressed as brother, or indeed frère. Look at the royal coat of arms up there, mentioning about someone, George K of Richmond. I shan't bother reading the whole thing. But obviously his son, Henry VIII, only 33 years later, closed down that same friary, told the monks to go away, part of the dissolution of the monasteries. So anyway, and that is almost all that stands of the original palace. A lot of it, Trumpeter's House, is on the site of what was the Trumpeter's House. So as I say, Henry VIII spent a considerable period of time here. His younger daughter, Elizabeth I, when she was queen, 1558 to 1603, she was very keen on Richmond, then considered several miles outside London, in the county of Surrey. And she came here, indeed she usually spent Christmas here, and indeed she died here in March 1603. And from here, her distant cousin, Sir Robert Carey, mounted his trusty steed and rode all the way to the Palace of Holyrood House in Scotland to inform James VI, King of Scots, that he was now also King of England. Anything else about this area? So very close to the River Thames, and the Thames was more like a motorway in those days. It was often faster to take a boat up and down the Thames than it was to go by road. The roads were in a parlous condition. Almost no road work had been done since the Roman times. It's only in the 18th century when turnpike trusts were set up, these companies which built and maintained roads and charged people for using them, that road transport became better as part of the transport revolution. Now, temperatures were more extreme in those days, notwithstanding climate change, so they'd gone full circle. And so the Thames did occasionally freeze over in December and January. So in that situation, you're forced to go by road. So horse-drawn carriage for the super wealthy, horse for the wealthy, going on foot for most people. And also they could catch fish. Remember, this being a Catholic country, of course, until the 1530s, people were not allowed to eat meat on Friday, and fish was a good alternative. Good for your health anyway, eggs, things like that. So it was close to Richmond Park, where they could hunt deer and things like that, and find themselves plenty of venison. So you can see chimneys there. Now, because of the Clean Air Act 1955, you're not allowed to burn a fire, but obviously it was crucial for to keep warm and to cook, to boil water and anything like that. That's why you see chimneys, even though they're no longer in use. So that is a little bit of what remains of Richmond Palace. There are other streets around here like Maids of Honour Row, and the houses there are not original. So then, come the English Civil War, Oliver Cromwell became Lord Protector of England, ruling the country. King Charles I had been overthrown and executed, and Oliver Cromwell felt he had no use for Richmond Palace, even though he was head of state, so ordered it to be sold off, and it was sold off, broken up. People then raised bits of it, built things on the site. Some of the stone was pillaged, and which is why not much of it remains. Obviously, the Restoration, Charles II, it went back into royal hands, but the royal family didn't spend very much time here again. In the 18th century, they were here briefly. Some of it dates from the early 18th century, but then after the mid-18th century, they never came here at all. It was entirely made up of private residences. So down one of these little lanes towards the river, just showing you just how close to the river we are, and some of the delightful pubs here, the White Swan. This is a water lane if memory serves, and just to demonstrate how close the palace is to the river, although the remains of the palace, it doesn't back directly onto the river. I don't think some of the houses do. There's some other houses in the way, the houses around that courtyard. Here's the White Swan, and indeed there were swans around here. The monarch owns all the swans on the Thames, curiously enough. I don't think they eat them anymore. They would have done centuries ago. Certainly the white swans, I'm not so sure about black swans, but there aren't a great number of those these days. We're close to Heathrow Airport, as you can hear, here in Richmond upon Thames. So the construction of a third runway at Heathrow is a political hot potato. But will Boris Johnson, Prime Minister, grasp the nettle? He'd opposed it for years, particularly as Mayor of London, but now he is eating his words, so that's that. Anyway, so around here, well, I wish that you was a bit of scratch and sniff so you could pick up this heady aroma. The viridity of the place is Elysian. Anyway, so there are some fine, large private residences with big gardens around here. There you are. Coming on to Old Father Thames. So a few miles down the Thames is Hampton Court Palace, which Thomas Cardinal Wolsey had built. He was Archbishop of York. York being then being the second largest city in England, the northern capital. And so the Archbishop of York is in charge of the church in the northern half of England. But anyway, Henry VIII fell out with Cardinal Wolsey. Cardinal Wolsey was arrested, brought down to London for trial, possible execution. But anyway, he died of illness en route. Anyway, then Henry VIII, he annexed that, simply declared it was his, Hampton Court Palace, and that's that. It's a royal palace to this day, but they don't spend any time there, and it's open to tourists. But a lovely thing you can do is get a boat down the river to there. You see, those one of the huge mansions I was talking about. Railway line here, west to Reading, across the River Thames. So it always thrills my heart to see the Thames. So quite tranquil, water level's fairly high because of plenty of rain, but the Thames is tidal down as far as Teddington, and Teddington is that away. So that's seawater coming in. So a lot of that would be salt water. And give you a look at this fine private house I was looking at, a bit neoclassical. And look at that honey-coloured stone, it's been cleaned not so long ago. Anyway, so the remains of Richmond Palace, we can't see them here, but they'd be in there beyond those trees, you know, only about a 3-minute walk away. I wasn't walking terribly fast, and some swans are gambolling there in the river. Okay, these little islands here, they're known as the flower pots. They're eights, you could say, E-Y-O-T, that's one spelling of it. A tiny island in the River Thames can be called an eight. So this word eight, just pronounced just like the number 8, applies only two islands of the Thames, not any other islands, or indeed 8 can be spelled A-I-T. When it's E-Y-O-T, some people mispronouncing AOT, but it's 8. Okay, so that was that. There was plenty of countryside around them. Well, the bridge didn't exist in those days, Richmond Bridge, which we're about to see. Anything else about the remains of Richmond Palace? I don't think so. So there still is an area called Sheen, a couple of miles to the east of here, but this bit here we call Richmond upon Thames would have been Sheen until 1501 as well. Okay, so you see more of the flower pots, the little 8s in the Thames, and then up here you see Corporation Island, as it's called. Not sure why. I mean, Corporation went as sort of a town council, not a company in those days. And then you see Richmond Bridge in the background. All right, that's enough from Richmond upon Thames and the remains of Richmond Palace. None of it's open to the public, I'm afraid. You'll just have to gawp and gaze with awe and wonderment and try and cast your mind back, picture some opulent scenes in the 16th century. That's enough. Goodbye.